Hello, everyone. I'm Crystal.
And I'm Ray. Welcome to the Ray and Crystal Show. Join us, your new astrology classmates, in our latest episode as we talk about the upcoming transits.
As a casual astrology podcast, we are here to learn together through candid discussion. You'll hear our interpretation of what's going on based on what we know and are still learning.
Follow along with us to amp up your understanding of what's happening and figure it out along with us on YouTube and Spotify every other Saturday.
So, Ray, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good. It feels like it's hard to process what's going to happen and what's happening at the same time right now because it feels like so much is happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
makes sense.
yeah, I talked earlier about like it felt like there's just like an avalanche of just things happening and pieces moving, and it's like I don't know, I've been doing a lot better to just observe it and kind of let the dominoes fall and kind of yeah, just let the snow fall, literally.
Mhm.
And also figuratively.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we're recording this literally a couple days away from New Year's. So it is quite interesting to think about like the fact that it's 2023 coming up and when our new goals and all the things that are going to happen next year are all about to be here. And I still remember where I was last year for New Year's. And it's so crazy because it's like the complete opposite of where I am now. And there's never really been a time where I've been doing a complete 180 like that. Like the variance in like the end of 2019 to the end of 2020 and the end of 2020 to the end of 2021 were very different. So it's like, oh shoot, this was like probably like the year with the most ups and downs for me.
Hmm. Yeah, it feels like the last maybe 2 years, not counting this year that we're having right now, 22, it feels like those were just like losses, like bad things.
That's a wash. We need to take that off the record. No,
Yeah,
we don't need that shit.
a lot of downwards, and it feels like there's still that this year, but it feels like there's other things as well. That's not the only thing anymore. Things are starting to grow from those ashes. Um, which kind of makes me think it's kind of a weird, uh, I guess not weird, it's weird to me, to try to plan out like the whole year or to make a goals for like a whole year. Um, just because I have trouble doing that. So this is one of the first years I'm like actually planning ahead and like I have an accountant now and like we're doing, budgeting and
Yeah,
leveling
we're
up.
responsible now. What?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
so
been
it's
quite
been it's
an
been good.
interesting time. Like I've just been like really reflecting on it because I spent all the holidays here in New York and they were like pretty cozy. I thought it'd be kind of lonely, but I wasn't lonely at all. In fact, I was way lonelier when I lived in LA and I'm just like, that's
Mm,
crazy. I think right now I'm like nostalgic for like when I lived in LA because it was familiar, but I don't like miss it because I have more people here that I feel like I can depend on who I've met way like who I've known for way less time. So that's like something really powerful to reflect on. Like just how immensely grateful I am.
yeah, I've always kind of associated, just historically associated people that I can depend on with people that have been around for a long time.
And that is not true.
Yeah. There's not always a correlation there. There is a little bit, maybe, but there's a lot to be said about people that it just works and it just clicks. And yeah, I don't know. It feels very Jupiter and Aries, actually.
Very much so, yeah. Yeah, but like looking ahead, I suppose, 1 week at a time, let's talk about the astrology for the first part of 2023. We'll have everything else linked in the description that we don't cover because we don't necessarily talk a lot about trines and sextiles. But yeah, the first order of business, so to speak, is Venus is leaving Capricorn. I feel like Venus just like was just here. Like, what the heck? But Venus is already out of Capricorn and going into Aquarius on January 2nd. And the sun will trine Uranus, with the sun being in Capricorn and Uranus being retrograde in Taurus on January 5th. And then we have our first full moon of the year in Cancer on January 6th, which is the day I'm going to go visit Ray, who has that
Oh
beautiful.
my God, that's the day you come here in my
Yeah.
fourth house.
Yeah.
Hold
Wow.
on, hold on. That means the sun's gonna be in my 10th. It's literally a coworker coming to my house.
Wow.
Sorry, that's so cool. I didn't
And
think about it.
I am, yes, I am Capricorn. I will be
And
the,
you're literally,
yeah,
you
yeah.
have,
I am a coworker and I'm literally also a Capricorn. So the sun will be in Capricorn and I am a Capricorn sun. So no, okay, we
hmm.
could not have planned that. I was just like, hey, let's pick this random weekend. Oh, that means we can celebrate the full moon together as soon as I get there.
It'll be on a Friday. That's very exciting. I didn't even think about that. I mean, I know timing matches up all the time, but yeah, we just looked at plane tickets and
Yeah,
we're like,
like
these days look good.
every time I have a viral tweet, Aquarius is somewhere like having an aspect like to Aquarius, and my Mercury is just like chilling. I should start like electing times to like post tweets and see what happens. That'd be funny. And then we have some conjunctions and trines. Check out the description. But on January 12th, Mars stations direct in Gemini. So that'll be exciting, hopefully. It's been in my seventh house for a while. Oh, wait, that's so funny because that's actually the day I'm gonna like talk to this guy about us being official. And I'm not afraid to mention that on this podcast because I doubt he's gonna hear this. Well, I mean, nothing
Maybe in
doesn't care about
hindsight.
nothing doesn't care about my content, but like also part of me is almost like I don't really care if he hears because he's not gonna be surprised or anything, probably. Um, but yeah, overshare, but I think it's pretty funny because again, Mars is in my seventh house of relationships. And this makes me think that I should not bring it up sooner than January 12th. I will wait for perhaps even that day, because that is 2 days before my birthday party.
Hmm.
We are
Yeah, definitely.
we here at the Ray and Crystal show definitely elect I mean, every astrologer should, but like not everyone does. We are electing times to do things based on transits. So if you want to learn how to do that, feel free to DM one of us.
Yeah, we'll try. It's something I'm still kind of figuring out. I'm actually really, really, really fascinated. I've been studying horary lately. That's always been my end goal is to be like a really good horary astrologer, like find things, do things, answer questions, full symbiotic, relationship between this guy and real life. That's my end goal. So I started that a little bit, even though I was going to wait until June when I finish the course I'm taking so that I have good foundations because I'm already seeing like my little pieces I'm missing in my foundations. But point being, I tried one last night because there was a little bit of cash from grandparents that was not with the rest of the cash from our gifts over the holidays. And my husband was like so nervous about it. He was like, we have to find it, this is, it's money, and was like frantically searching. I'm like, well, let's slow down. Like, we need to go through each gift. It's very, he's Sag rising, and I'm very, Sun and Virgo, very Mercury. Like, every little bitty detail, let's pick it apart. And he's like, let's do a full, like, grand desk search. Anyways, point being, I tried to worry about it to see, and that led into me looking up and researching more what classifies a chart as radical, which means able to be read. And like, if it's not radical, then you can't use it, or you have to use it differently, or it's not proper, or something to that effect. I'm still learning fully, so if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself later. Um, but yeah, the ascendant was at 0 degrees, and if the ascendant is at less than 3, it's like the issue is still gestating. It's still developing. It's too early to have an answer or a clear answer. And so I think that's really fascinating. Just tying in, you were talking about like maybe having the conversation too soon. I learned with horary, like it even said one person recommended um, not casting a chart until you've pondered the question for 24 hours at least.
Mhm,
So if you were just like, oh, I want to do this, like I did, um, you
mhm.
wouldn't get a proper chart because it's supposed to be like a last
Yeah.
resort. Like I've done everything I can. and it's a timing thing, and you can't just practice over and over because you'll get the same chart. You're casting a chart for the moment.
I have
Like,
not
wow.
gotten into horror, and I feel like I want to do it more for like my creative endeavors because I'm always like, when it's time for like me to like speak to people about things. But this is an interesting perspective, and I will definitely perhaps be consulting you for more information about that because horror's always seemed kind of confusing to me because I never know how to like quite map like what I represent as well and stuff like that. Like it's like your Jupiter or your or like no, sorry, I forgot like what it is like the person represents as like when you look at like where you like I was just remembering like Ace had like a post once about casting something to figure out what their cat wanted. And I was like trying to like look at like the rating to understand it, and I'm just like lost. But yeah.
It goes, yeah, it's ties very, it's an area where you absolutely cannot mix like modern techniques and modern school of thought because it's not a modern practice. It's not like they didn't just create horary. Like that is something that was established and it had its own thoughts and logic. And so you can't really apply logic that was developed way later to it. And that's where it gets really difficult because it's really different. It's like so it's just different. Like and that's one of the biggest parts is finding the significator for things. It's so much more black and white than modern astrology. There's a lot of it can be this and that and
Hmm.
flexible and yes and both, it's not either or with modern, which is why I love it so much. But with this, it's, if you're trying to find something, cash, you don't want to know that it might be in this room or it might be in that room or it could be this, or you want to know where it's at. So that's kind of I don't know, it was just a lot of thinking of just you can't rush things. Like you have to do it when the time is right, even asking the question itself. Like if you just did it, I don't remember the phrase it used, but it was like light emotion or something. Like if it's just like a spur of the moment, oh, I really want to know this or I really want to find that out. It's not for that. It's not for shallow thoughts. It's meant for like, this is very serious. This is very respectful. It said if a querent comes to you, no matter how good you are at horary, if they're coming to you in bad faith, you won't get a good chart. You won't get a good thing because
Hmm.
I mean, it's faith based as well, but also very science based. It's very, I don't know, my sun in Virgo, moon in Pisces. It's just the perfect marriage of like Mercury and Jupiter, and that huge and that small.
Yeah, it's a
I
very
get really excited
mercurial
about that.
thing. I feel like I could not see myself getting super into it because it scares the fuck out of me. I think it's because Mercury is like much more precisionistic, and I am not. My Mars in a Mercury ruled sign is already like enough here. So yeah.
Um,
Um, with that being said, it seems like Venus in Aquarius is in your 11th house. Yes, because you're an Aries rising, and it is in my third house. So it seems like I don't know. I feel like horror is one of those things where like I've seen it getting more and more popular, and think it makes me think about how like we're entering a new era of the information age with Pluto and Aquarius also coming up really soon in 2023, and Saturn and Pisces forcing us to think of our belief systems. And like I just feel like as Venus nears my sun, which is in late degree Capricorn, I feel like I'm getting more like praise in general for like my mind and
mm,
like the way I execute things, especially because like I know my Mercury is an Aquarius, and it's just like sort of like that like late degree like Capricorn Aquarius sort of mixture is always like me being very like critical about like how to value yourself as like adding value to society, and how you should think of it. And I always thought it's kind of lofty, but it turns out people really like what I have to say. And that's been something I've been noticing lately. And I think will continue in 2023, even past that transit. So, what about you? What are your thoughts on your Venus and Aquarius transit that'll be in your 11th house?
I guess before I get to that, I want to add on to what you said as far as you said something and it made me think of like because I've struggled a lot with like people now me thinking that people don't want to hear what I have to say, which is hilarious given the situation we're in literally right now. Um, but it's because I've worked on it. I've told myself people want to hear it. I've told myself, but yeah, it just makes me think of what I realized. I thought it was like I want to attract a certain fish in this pond, so I need a specific kind of bait. Like I need to use certain words, I need to be a certain way, show a certain way, and dangle a certain kind of desire in front of them, or not even desire, bait. I need to be attractive in some capacity. And I don't know, I overthought so much about the bait, the words that I was using, the way I was doing it, that I didn't realize the pond is like endless and there's endless amounts of fish in it, just like there's endless amount of people. And whatever kind of bait I put in the pond, fish that want that food will show up. And so I don't have to be picky with what kind of bait I do. All I have to do is make sure I'm still laying the trap or setting the bait, like just actually doing the work rather than making sure it's perfect or making sure, it's, yeah, I think that and just that kind of mentality of just see who shows up, say
Yeah,
what you
man,
say.
your community can be anyone, not just who you think in your Virgoic mind it looks like. Just like, okay, I want to set this intention and be open to like experimentation and just flow with whoever comes my way.
Yeah. So with Venus entering Aquarius, I mean, for me specifically, since I'm Aries rising, Venus is my second and my seventh house, which would be kind of some expectation of a period of. It's actually really funny. I'm planning, well, working with like a business partner or someone that you would generate income with, since seventh and second house are what Venus represents in my chart. Um, and I'm planning on teaching a class in January, and the 11th house. Uh, Communities is not like a bad association. That's one that's more of a modern, but not bad because it's close enough. Um, but it's more so about like beneficiaries or like supporters.
Patreons,
Yeah,
patrons.
literally. Actually, yeah, that's a good example. And the, next month I'm planning a class that's in person to teach. Um, it's going to be my first in-person class I think ever, actually. I don't know
Ooh.
if I've taught, and yeah, I'm really excited about that. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so I'm doing it on like, I'm calling it Jesus the Astrologer, and the the town I'm doing it in is very conservative, and so I'm trying to meet them where they're at and bring what I know, since I also have a little bit of biblical studies background
Mhm.
to college. So to me, Venus in Aquarius is going to go from that 10th house of planning things and of working and gaining that visibility and actually meeting that person. Since the 11th and the 10th have the same ruler for me, they're both Saturn, and Saturn's in the 11th. It's like, uh, yeah, it could represent like a benefactor or someone, a patron, if you will. And all
Mhm.
this to say, there's someone I've been working with for this local institution to get aligned with what we want to do. And yeah, I think it's going to coincide with me working with other people, collaborating with other people. I mean, you're literally visiting just a few days later. So we'll be working together a little bit. I'll be working there that month. And then even my husband and I, which is probably the most literal second, seventh house sharing a ruler. Um, we are, we're planning, he's planning on teaching classes too, or potentially getting involved. So there's a lot of yeah, just working together with people. Because for me, Venus is it's business partners mostly. I mean, it's seventh house, it's second house, it's
Mhm.
either someone like a therapist that's helping me out. So yeah, I'm expecting great things. I'm expecting the Venus in Aquarius for me to be very fruitful and productive, but very, I mean, growing a garden is hard work. it's kind of one of the themes I think recently, and even moving forward, is like growing a garden is a lot of hard work. I mean, that's it's wonderful, and I think the time that we're in now and have been, in December has been the time of harvesting our crops, and now we have this empty field or scarce field where there's not very much, and that's kind of an uncomfortable spot to be in. But then Venus enters Aquarius, and it's like we're going to be planting more things, and maybe some things that weren't harvested will be ready to harvest. And yeah, it's just going to be a different garden, but planning that and actually working that is a lot of work. And I think that's kind of what we'll see with, like, on the 5th, the sun trining Uranus. I think that'll contribute, since that'll be, they're both in an earth sign. That's a good metaphor for
I
growing.
know, yeah, like my Capricorn sun is like, ooh, like that's kind of like relevant to me because like my south node's also in Taurus. But yeah, to your point, I'm realizing that my seventh and my 10th house are both ruled by Mercury because Gemini and Virgo. No, wait. Oh, hang on. So it's like seventh house is Oh yeah, wait, yeah, they're both Gemini and Virgo. It's scary. Um, but it's like funny because I'm also like an Aquarius Mercury, and like that's also related to your plane of like beneficiaries. Not that I'm very wealthy, but I am certain someone that certainly would be excited to like hype you up to my network and all these things. So it's like this mercurial relationship there too. And yeah, I think sometimes personifying people as like their Mercury, like the part of them that like is making an aspect to you, it's like my Mercury specifically, maybe not the rest of me, but yeah, that's like pretty cute. Oh,
I think it's even cuter when you consider that my husband is also a Sag rising,
oh
so
my
he's got
God.
that same 7-11, but I didn't
No,
think
I was
about
actually
that.
thinking about that.
His 11th house? God. Okay, yeah, literally. It makes so much sense for us to be working together and doing like community events, and to have, I mean, it works out, I think.
Yeah, for me, I think I understand your Virgo sun more. I don't really know what the Aries part means because I just have straight up not met that many Aries risings. I've only ever met like three. So you're like
That's
the
the way through it.
closest friend I have who's an Aries rising and like one of the only people I actively talk to. So no clue what that means, but I guess I'll find out.
Um, yeah, actually, I wonder if I can get my brother in town. He doesn't live in the state, but he travels a lot, but he's also an Aries rising.
Oh
And
wow,
so,
that's cute.
yeah,
Yeah, my
yeah,
sister
that
like
would
with
be,
Capricorns, but that's not it. She's an Aquarius rising.
I love an Aquarius rising,
Oh, I'm about
actually.
to
One
enter
of
my
my
fifth house year, Ray. I'm literally entering a fifth house perfection year. It's going to be in Aries. So getting creative
Hmm,
with Ray.
literally, yeah. Wow, okay, setting the foundations for what's gonna go into your home later.
I know, right? Like I already built the home. I've celebrated that I built the home, and now I'm gonna try to like furnish the home with things I actually love and like find my pleasure centers. Um, yeah, this full moon in Cancer though, on the 6th is gonna be my eighth house. And every time I have a Cancer transit or aspect, I'm just like always wrecked. So we shall see what happens. But if it's gonna be opposite my sun in the eighth house,
Wow, that's literally just gonna be travel fatigue.
perhaps. Yes. Yeah. I also wonder if I'll get like a reply from my CPA on January 6th because the eighth house is like taxes and the money you owe other people. I've been like trying to get a hold of her so I can like figure out the taxes for this year. So that'll be funny. But yeah, I'd rather hang out with you on this full moon in Cancer because yeah, it might be like a lot. Who knows? It's right at the beginning of the year too. Like, what do you make of that with your fourth house?
Well, I think you had an example you didn't really expand on that's really, really good for this full moon, and that's going to be January 6th. Um,
Which
you,
example?
you had mentioned that, like, I don't remember the context, but like, kind of like you bought a house and now, but it's empty, and you have this empty house, and like you still have to furnish it. It's that feeling of like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, I made it. I have a house. Now it's empty, and I'm sleeping on the floor, and
I know. Like, okay, I have a
great,
house.
but
There's an air
yeah.
mattress. It's okay.
Uh, it feels very much like that, like the birth of a new start. that's simultaneously the completion of something old at the same time.
That
So
makes
yeah,
sense.
it seems like a common theme. Sorry.
I feel like
What
the
were you
fourth
saying?
house is, I was gonna say Cancer in the fourth house is kind of like the harvest.
Hmm.
It feels kind of like reaping what you sow. Like you get like good food and good results and intimacy if you have been behaving and stuff, which is why I hated it as a kid. Like that Cancer vibe of like, I'm never a good enough kid for my parents or my teachers to like be nice to me. But now I associate like, oh, people with Cancer make me feel very nurtured and at home. That's a good thing. So yeah.
You have a Mars ruled fourth, don't you? In
Yeah,
Virgo.
no, it's Pisces.
Where's your fifth
Saturn.
place?
So my Saturn's in Pisces in the fourth house. Yeah. So it'd be like Jupiter ruled, I believe.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
have a Mars
Okay.
ruled eighth house. So my Mars is in the eighth house. Or sorry. My Mars is in the fifth house. Oh my God, I'm like so tired.
It's all words. Which Mercury hasn't went retrograde yet, has it?
It
No,
did.
it has not. No, it did.
And
Oh my God.
yeah, it's retrograding conjunct the sun January 7th, which we didn't talk about.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's yeah, it feels like Mercury's just back to the avalanche example. It feels like just this whole period is like there's an avalanche happening, and Mercury is just this little like ice fairy going through and like shaping and forming the snow as it falls. So that by the time it's at the bottom of the mountain, it's either these nice ice sculptures or at the very least it's out of harm's way. Um, but yeah, Mercury, it works in ways we don't understand. That's what I love about it so much and what is so fun about it. And yeah, I think we'll have the full moon. Mercury will be conjunct the sun the next day on the 7th, and we'll get a little bit more clarity on like, okay, what's going on? Um,
It's time to get the game plan going. New Year's resolutions. Capricorn is when
yeah,
the new year for the Gregorian calendar is, which is pretty cool.
yeah. So it's new. I mean, it's new beginnings, new starts. I don't even know if new beginnings, new starts to old beginnings. So
Like,
yeah, I guess I'm just really excited for this period coming up, especially when Mars goes direct on the 12th. I don't know what's gonna happen,
we'll
but
see.
I'm really, really, really interested.
When did Mars go into retrograde again? I'm trying to remember. I think it was like October or something, right? How long has it been in retrograde?
Look, I've got my little ephemeris
Oh yeah,
here.
it went retrograde like right before Halloween, October 30th. That was like not a good time. And then I met this dude I'm dating like literally like a couple weeks after. So I'm like, that was fine in the end. But yeah. Um, oh, Mars has basically been in retrograde the entire time I've been in New York, almost, because it went retrograde right, like basically like almost a month in. So it's been like two-thirds of my stay in New York. It's been in retrograde. So like my relationships, I wouldn't say have like the new ones haven't suffered, but I will say that like I've had a couple like struggles with intimacy when it comes to like my former relationships, my former life in LA. Um, but maybe something will happen when it goes direct, but I'm also not counting on it because nothing's a guarantee. It's just kind of like history's made in retrospect, so is astrology. You can like look back and be like, oh shit, that makes so much sense, you know? But at the time you won't
Mhm.
know.
Did you have you considered the so Mars is retrograding in oh not your third, it's in my third. The third house in general is like its relationship to the fourth. Notably is what I'm talking about. It's like the fourth being the home, foundations, beginnings, that kind of thing. The third is similar to the 12th, in the sense that it's a cadent house, and it's the planets are moving towards the fourth, they're moving towards the home, but the primary motion of the sun or the earth, the one that spins the other way, the opposite directions that the planets actually travel, it's moving towards or away from the fourth. And so the third house is a place where things um, take you away from the home, but they also bring you towards it at the same time. So
Yeah.
getting groceries, for example. You
Mhm.
leave the
Yeah.
house to get groceries, but then you bring it back and then your house is fuller. Um, and I think that's very much kind of represents the time I'm in. It feels like there's been things that have been shaking my foundation and, changing how the dynamic in my home is. But at the same time, because of that, it's making it so much stronger.
Yeah, wow. That like is so interesting. I keep forgetting how like the house is like proceeding and then like directly after also impact things. So yeah, like the effects of my Saturn year, which is in the third house year, and we talk about perfection years only, like have really impacted like how this year played out. And I already see echoes of like the fifth house year of like a creativity renaissance happening. And that's a huge theme I'm intending.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, also with Gemini, it's like I think like the more I settled like my routine of how I want to live my life and like actually like achieved the stability I've been looking for by knowing how to like get out of like LA where I was getting complacent, which is kind of like sixth house themes. It seems like they're like kind of ending. I feel like I'm actually stable and secure now, like on an existential level. And I remember like when the show first started, even like I was kind of like going through it. I was like, dude, like I don't know my love life. I don't know about like my job, all these things. Now I have a lot of stability in a very fast time. And it really was through like the power of like relationships and how I plant seeds without keeping score. And I want to continue this like theme. Um, and yeah, like there will be eighth house probably themes too popping up soon. Because I think even though I'm happy now, I'm definitely like aware that like I've had so much pain in my life when it came to trusting the world that that is definitely not resolved and will continue to be something I focus on going into the next era. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning too that with the seventh house, like Mars being in your seventh house, that's like marking a completion of sorts.
Mhm.
But at the same time, because it's retrograding, it's like it's done, but it's not done. And it's finished, but it's not finished. And you're tying up all those loose ends. Like the present is wrapped, but the bow is not finished tying on it. And once it moves into your eighth house, I think that is going to represent almost like the fear or the fear of loss of what you have in the seventh. And it might be a
Oh my
time
God,
of
what? Wait, call me out. I literally keep thinking I'm gonna die
punishment.
if I get to enjoy everything. And I keep fearing that I deserve everything. It's all gonna fall away. Wait, so that's like eighth house stuff, you think?
Yeah, so naturally, just the way the planets move, we do things, we finish them, we feel good about the fact that we finish them, and then we get scared that we're going to lose them.
That is literally how
And
I feel
then
right
wants
now.
to
I
keep
felt this way for like
yeah,
so long too. I'm just like, that's just life.
yeah, it's the Mars, and I think it's very, very, I mean, I felt it maybe to a lesser extent. I think you're probably feeling it a lot stronger with Mars being in your seventh, of in an actual angular house of you're not being pulled away or towards anything, you're already there, you're in it.
I know,
And
like
you're
I'm literally like, am I gonna peak? Am I gonna just like die before I can like fully enjoy my life in New York and have this feel like reality? Because it's still like I'm still in like disbelief that my life could have turned out so good. And like after this, I'm just gonna hop on the train and go at a coffee shop and hang out with friends and like have this like life where everything's always like feeding into each other. And it was like in New York the whole time. Like, damn, you know?
yeah, yeah, definitely. And with Mercury just kind of doing everything it's doing, even while it's retrograding, I think that's a good metaphor for like even when we're moving backwards, we can still be accomplishing a lot.
Mhm.
And a backwards movement shouldn't be a sign of a lack of growth, actually. Sometimes I think that can make an even stronger growth. And so, yeah, with Mercury, just I have the list of transits. We didn't read all of them because there's always a lot more that is worth talking about with the time that we have. But it's aspecting a lot of different things, notably the Sun, notably Uranus and Neptune. And so there's a lot of it's figuring out the logic for those Jupiterian, those Uranian concepts, those big, expansive, unusual, sudden thoughts and beliefs. Mercury's like, how can we make sense of that? And it takes time and it takes a lot of kind of dancing and flexibility. And that's why Mercury's good at what it does, is because that's what it is. And so I think that's kind of what this retrograde period is about. And it'll end on the 18th is when Mercury goes direct. It's worth mentioning, even though it's past our dates that we have set. Yeah, it's the time for that. It's the time to be confused. It's the time to change your beliefs or to tweak them or to do something a little bit different or do something a little bit new, even if it's familiar and feels old at the same time.
That makes total sense. Yeah. Anyways, was there anything else you wanted to add about like I guess these transits we have coming up? Seems like there's a lot of flow happening, a lot of just like interesting things to consider around, yeah, just like leading up to like these like Mercury and Mars going direct, and just also like Capricorn season continuing, like a lots of time for like productivity, but finding that through community, it looks like.
Yeah, definitely. I think the only thing to note is, or the last thing to note might be like we have a lot of trines and sextiles in this period, and we often associate those with like positive things because those would be considered Jupiterian or Venetian aspects. But I do want to just add a little bit of nuance. Just that trines and sextiles can be awful. They can be bad. They can be uncomfortable. And squares can be great. They can be awesome and positive. And so, even though we're talking about these aspects, even Venus square Uranus on the 14th, some people might read that and get kind of like, oh no, Venus, trouble, Uranus, what's going to happen? When really that's Venus, impressing itself onto Uranus in a way that makes it more Venetian, more comfortable, more pleasant. And so that square is actually probably going to be a really nice thing. So just to add a little bit of nuance of not every trine is good, not every sextile is good, not every square or opposition even is bad. Yeah, it's a flow thing, and I think thinking of trines and sextiles easy flowing is helpful because avalanches, tsunamis, hurricanes, those are all easy flowing. There's no resistance there. It's flowing, but it's destructive. And so, yeah, it's kind of a crazy period right now. Lots of flowing. So it's important to just kind of be like water, be like the air, and kind of just melt past the obstacles that and the roadblocks that come up.
Yas, King. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, anyways, thank you everyone for tuning in and hanging out with us today. As always, any transits we didn't cover will be posted in the show description. If you're interested in finding out more about us, you can find info on my work at crystal-duan.com or at crystalxduan on Twitter and sometimes Instagram.
And if you wanted to read my free new and full moon horoscopes, or learn about how you can work with me as your personal astrologer, you can find me at Rey, R-E-Y, Ray of Light Astro on Instagram, or Ray of Light Astrology on Facebook.
Yep, and all this will be linked in the description too. So stay safe, everyone, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.